Today, we're going to build the world's most balanced FX3 rig. So I've been shooting with the FX3 for a while now, but after playing with Daniels C70 last weekend, it just felt much better balanced than my build. So I thought we'd build a new rig from scratch that's going to be much more balanced than what I've been using previously. I'm using the SmallRig full cage for this, and I've got a Nato mounted on top and another Nato mounted on the left side. This left side here is so I can mount a handle later, and this Nato on top is where I mount either a top handle or an external monitor. Next, we'll add a nicely rigged base plate. I've chosen this one because it's quite short, unlike some of the others on the market that really add a lot of vertical height to your rig for no good reason. Whenever I'm mounting a base plate, I always make sure I have at least 2 screws in there, because whenever I have just 1 screw, it ends up coming loose over time, or it allows the plate to rotate. Next, we'll add a standard Manfrotto base plate so I can mount it to tripods, monopods, and gimbals. Again, I'm using 2 screws to mount this base plate, not just 1. By having this rod plate here all the time, it's definitely adding a little bit of height to my camera, even when I'm not wanting to use rods. But as it's so thin, it's not a problem for me, and I can use this camera as is on a tripod without feeling like it's way too tall. The next step is an optional side handle. Now you don't need this, and the rig feels very balanced even without it, but personally, as soon as we start building out a bit, I much prefer having a wider grip to hold the camera rather than holding it super close like this. Even when I'm not using the grip itself, if I'm holding the lens, it still gives me an extra point of contact here, which makes the camera more stable even when I'm holding the lens barrel itself. Next up, we have the SmallRig top handle. I really love this because it has a Nato mount on the bottom. This allows me to mount it much more securely than if I was using cold shoe or some other connector. And it also allows me to slide it left and right to achieve the perfect balance. Additionally, we've also got adjustability here by turning these screws, which allows me to slide the top handle forward and back to find that perfect balance. So this is how I've been using the FX3 for a while now, and I actually do love it and it's nice to operate. However, it is very front heavy from the weight of the monitor, the weight of the lens, and this big battery here. So what we really want to do is offset the weight by adding some weight to the back. That's where this comes in. This is a SmallRig NPF battery plate mounted to some 15mm rods. I can put this at the rear of the camera and then move all the weight of the batteries from the rear of the monitor, which is up front and up high, down to the back where it sits down low and to the rear of the camera. This will help me get that 50-50 weight distribution. And when I'm using bigger or smaller lenses, I can adjust the balance just by moving this in and out like that.
The original version uses Sony NPF batteries because they're small and light and have decent power capacity. I ended up building a second rail system that is similar but accepts V-mount batteries. This allows me to use larger capacity batteries that also have USB-C outputs and time remaining data on screen.
To power the monitor, I'm just using this dummy battery to connect from here to here. As you can see, this is much more balanced now. I can hold it one hand and it's not front heavy anymore because all the weight here is offset by the weight back here. I've also got an extra point of contact, so I can hold that against my chest, and it just makes the whole camera feel much smoother as my body's controlling the motion rather than just my hands, as well as giving me the long battery life without being a front heavy camera, and gives me a nice compromise between a naked FX3 and a fully built out FX6, so it's a really nice middle option. I've been getting more requests for social media content from companies lately, so I'll show you how I convert this into a vertical video rig.
This vertical rig uses 3 extra pieces: a tripod plate receiver to Nato rail, a right side handle to Nato receiver, and a Nato to Nato monitor clamp.
We'll start by relocating the left side handle to the bottom. I've mounted a Nato rail to the right side of my monitor, which allows me to easily relocate the monitor to the top. I then replace the previous top handle with a new right side handle. This vertical video setup is actually super comfortable to work with, as it has the same benefits as the other rig, where I've got the extra point of contact here, and it being fully balanced means it's nice to handhold for long periods of time. It only takes a minute to swap between the normal setup and the vertical video setup, but I wouldn't want to be jumping back and forth. I try and get all my content in one orientation first and then do the swap once. Links to everything I've used today is in the description below. However, you don't need these exact parts. These are just the bits I had laying around from previous builds. What's more important is to experiment and find what works best for you. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions or feedback, leave that in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.